interesting? Gosh, forget about all this technique of woodcut stuff. You know what? It's like, okay, you know what the whole point of my art career turned out to be when I look back about 50, like 20 years now, I've been looking back on it, and it's like, I did all this work and did the galleries, and at some point, the commercial galleries, I guess my work started getting to the commercial gallery was told me that for my last show there, they looked at the work, and it was this stuff. It was I was doing these huge murals, and the Gulf War had just broken out. So it was like I was doing these murals where it would go like this.
I like the chain link fence.
Yeah, and they're all, it's all still woodcut.
Yeah. Oh, you did the woodcut on the chain link?
Oh, the whole thing.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
the whole imagery is woodcut.
Wow. Okay.
So it would be like this.
Oh, I see. It's all together.
Yeah, it's all together.
Yeah,
So it would be like,
Yeah.
so I was calling them woodcut murals. And they would all, I had like a whole bunch of them, and they would all hang on the wall. I just hung them on the wall with push pins. And when the gallery saw all this work, the owner said, and this was like a week before it was going to open, and he said, you can't show this. And I said, why not? And he said, this is too, because our gallery, this is not, well, it's not going to sell.
Yeah.
It's not going to, it's too socio-political. It's too much of a statement here. You can't, I can't show this. And it was like, God, I had just spent all this time on all these murals like this, and a few other artists came down, and Enrique Chagoya's work?
Who?
Enrique Chagoya.
No.
He's an art instructor in Hayward or somewhere right now, but he had been doing these really big, huge drawings. They were pretty political drawings, and he had like Mickey Mouse using against big, whatever was going on politically at the time. And so there were all these artists beginning to break through the commercial art scene, doing a lot more stuff, showing like what's really going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And so some artists came to argue my point with the owner, and he said, okay, this is it, this is your last show. And it was like, fine. So did the last show, and when I finished, his assistant said, can't you do more cranes and moons?
Oh.
I said, no, not really. So it was cool because then, I left that, but then there was the whole alternative gallery scene going on. So Pro Arts back then was just beginning to happen in Oakland. The Berkeley Arts Center, MoMA in the city. I mean, all these other alternative galleries were really beginning to happen. And so, great. So I started like showing there instead. And then the more I showed, it's like finally I started getting invited to show at different venues, which was nice. But the big part was when there was a show at the Berkeley Arts Center I got invited to, and it was dedicated to Audre Lorde. And it was about women's histories. And so there were like 5 or 6 of us, all women of color, or maybe there was one white woman, I think. And we were all to pick one woman that really inspired our lives, and then do an installation around it. And so between this and installations, from here I started doing, printmaking started becoming not direct enough for me. It's like I had the image, but it's like, then you gotta carve the plates, and then you gotta prep them, and you gotta, and it's like I just needed to express things.
Mm-hmm.
So I
the Mickey Mouse ear.
Oh,
A lot. I've seen
yeah.
like right here. I'm seeing
Right.
it in the
Right.
in the
That
Cheers to
painting.
Muses.
Right.
It was in there too. I'm
Right.
just curious about.
Well, you
it.
know, it's so interesting. That symbolizes so much for me because when I was about 7 in LA, we had moved from the neighborhood where I'd grown up to that point, which was all Japanese American and African American and black. And when I was 7, Dad moved us out and moved us to a different part of LA that was all white. And man, I got slammed racially. Like when I was 7, it was, I got japped out of elementary school. I was cornered on the yard, and then, the whole class would be invited to parties except me, that kind of thing. And when you're young, and I didn't know why, and then we ended up living next door to this guy who he hated Japs, and so I would go out to play with my younger brother, and he'd stick his head out and go, "You Japs, get back in the house! You don't deserve to breathe. Go back to where you came from." That kind of stuff. So when I turned 7, my whole life just went, it was like, what's going on? And I never told my mother because, and it's true, all that stuff you read about internalized racism, because you don't know what's going on. It's like, I didn't know what was going on. So I thought I was doing something wrong, and then, but I was such a good student. I was such a good girl that, well, it can't be that. So you start thinking like, you're really ugly. There must be something really wrong with you. And so I just internalized that I was just like really ugly. And then one day my mother said, she came down on her knees, looked me eye down, and said, "Are people at school calling you a Jap?" And it's like, I remember I just got so hot and I got so embarrassed that I said, yeah, because I thought she found out I did something wrong, and I was going to, like, I embarrassed her, and she just said, "You know what, that's really wrong, and it's not your fault." And then she kind of gave me this rap, but at that point I couldn't understand what she was talking about the camps and about some people, they don't like you just because you're Japanese, but we can't let that bother us, and it's like, okay, but I'm going to school every day and it's being told as I'm not good enough to be here, and so that was going on for, and then middle school would come and no one asked me to be their partner at the end of the school years, and so I would have to line up with the special ed kids, and then whoever's next to you is your partner, and that kind of thing. I mean, it was like, it was really ugly. And at that time, I guess my parents were kind of going through issues too. So at 7 years old, going outside, there was a lot of racism, and inside there was that going on. So it's like I was really kind of a lost kid. And then one of my brothers, my older brother's friends, Bill, he would come over. He was a Japanese American kid. He would come over to hang out with my brother, but he would always talk to me. And he was a pianist, so he'd have me sit on the stool with him and he'd play Gone with the Wind for me, or he'd play these beautiful pieces, And then he kind of took me under his wing. And so I fell madly in love with him. I was 7 and he's like, what, 12 or 13? And it kind of went that way for like a really long period of time, And it was during that time that I was used to watch Mickey Mouse on the Mickey Mouse Club on TV. And I would, man, when time came on, I would go get my ears from my bedpost and put them on. And I would dance and stuff. And that half hour every day was also a time where I was part of the group, and I belonged, and I could sing and dance, So it was Mickey Mouse, and it was Bill, and, when you're young like that, you kind of pick out the things that can make you feel good, And I also started, I read Helen Keller, and I got really into her. And because outside the door was racism, and indoor there was a lot of familial stuff going on, I became Helen Keller for I thought it was just a short period of time, but my brothers said I would walk around the house like I couldn't see or hear for a couple years. So it's like I just kind of shut everything out. And the only time I was present was when Bill came over or the Mickey Mouse Club was on, then I was a normal kid. And so that piece that you saw was actually, what happened was Bill, I found out in the 90s, he died of AIDS. And that's him right there. A really good looking Asian guy. And it's like, when he died, I remember, like, I painted this for Bill, because that's how he made me feel when all that crap was going on. But it took me a really long time for me to really acknowledge that he died. You know, it's like I did in the Japanese custom. When someone dies, you send what you call koden, which is you send a card with some money in it, and then the family sends you back, I don't know why, stamps, letter stamps. And so I got a book of the AIDS stamps. And in my 20s even, I remember I would go down to LA, and he opened this very successful bookstore in LA called Chatterton's, and it was the books. It's like City Lights, except so this was called Sterile Cuckoo.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about the title?
Yeah, because after he died, I dreamt that I saw him, we were talking, and that we both knew he was going to die, but I wanted to have this is a really weird dream. I wanted to have his baby. So in the dream, he had put some sperm in a sperm bank for me. And when I woke up, I was so excited. It's like, you know, and I wasn't quite awake yet. And I was going, great, I'm going to have this baby. And then it's like I came awake, and it's like, oh, wow, you know, this is really not going to happen. And so, and then that's a cuckoo, because in Japanese symbolism, cuckoos, they are the first sign of spring when you hear their song, and so they are like new beginnings. And so sterile cuckoo was because I was kind of a sterile cuckoo. I wanted his baby, but I couldn't, so that's sterile. And then cuckoo was like this new beginnings, because I felt like now that I'm grieving him, you know, I can actually move on, you know. So what is the title of this one? Oh yeah, Promises. Where so the cuckoo is sitting on the magician hat.
The Mickey Mouse hat.
Yeah.
And the arrow through the heart.
On the heart?
The
Yeah.
arrow, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. The arrow's going straight through the heart. Yeah. Yeah. So that was one. These are two for
You have
him.
to cut the